Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome yet again to another episode of Lunch Guide. I am going to be your host, Chef Andy. You are now tuned into BrandPlus TV, and today we are going to be doing some really easy steps with potatoes. So what we are going to be doing is we're going to be going through a few different kinds of ways you can work with potatoes, ways that you can make it a salad, ways that you can make it a side, ways that you can make it a snack, and ways that you can actually make it a little fun even for your party and for your guests. So to start us off, I'm just gonna go right through to the ingredients. I'm just gonna give you a basic idea of what we're gonna be working with today. So I'm just gonna start right at the front. So from your right and my left is cumin powder, oregano, and one hard-boiled egg, and then I have garlic, I have mayonnaise, and I have paprika powder. I have some red food color, some black pepper, some salt. I have some sesame seeds, some chopped chives, and some Parmesan cheese. I have some toothpicks, which you'll see what we're gonna do with those later. And then I have some apple cider and some mustard, English mustard, definitely easy to find. I've got some pre-boiled potatoes, so these have been boiled for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then I cooled them off under cold running water. And then I have a bit of egg wash here, so this is a mixture of eggs and 1 tablespoon of water, and I whipped that together and then set it aside. I also have some breadcrumbs, and then next to me I have some lemons, very local lemons, or any imported lemons if you can find some. I've got also a mixture here that is basically a mixture of tomatoes and chopped onions, chopped red onions, not white. And then I have some celery sticks, I have some coriander, and then I have some cucumber, which I'm going to show you much later how we're going to actually use it to plate and make our plate a little more interesting. So we're now just going to jump into a short break, and when we come back, I'm going to take you through different steps of how we can actually play with potatoes, trying to actually make it a little more interesting to have them on your meals, and an easy way to make it part of your lunch snack every time you actually think of potatoes when you're having lunch. So grab your pens, grab your pieces of paper. We're gonna go for a short break, and when we come back, we're gonna dig right in, and we're gonna have some fun in this kitchen today. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to today's show of Lunch Guide. I'll be your host, Chef Andy. We were actually just starting into the process of making a very simple process whereby you're actually going to go through a small journey of how to make potatoes a little more interesting as a snack, as a side, as a salad, and even just something that you can be able to carry with you to work, or even for the kids. So basically, for those who missed out on the introductory bit of the show, we were just going through the ingredients that are on my right here, which is exactly in front of you, and I'll just go through them again. I have some cumin powder, I have some oregano, I have some hard-boiled egg, I have some paprika powder, some usual mayonnaise, just regular mayonnaise. I have some chopped garlic, some red food color, I have some black pepper, some regular salt, some Parmesan cheese, some chopped chives, and some sesame seeds. I also have a bit of some toothpicks that I'm going to show you how you're going to play around with those. I have some apple cider, I have some English mustard, I have some coriander and some celery. I have some cucumber that we're going to use much later, which I'm going to show you how to make it look a little more interesting to plate with. I've got some chopped tomatoes and chopped red onions. So basically this is an equal quantity of tomato to onion. Fine chop that. If you have a food processor, just throw them in there. I also have some local lemons. I also have some breadcrumbs, some egg wash, which is basically just 1 beaten egg and 1 tablespoon of water. And then I have some parboiled potatoes that we had boiled earlier. So those were actually boiled for 10 to 15 minutes, and then I cooled them off under cold running water. So those should be soft and good to go. So we're just gonna go right into it. I'm just gonna go through the first part of the preparation. So we're gonna just take our potatoes foremost, and we're just gonna separate them. Remember, we're gonna play with the potatoes 4 ways, so I'm just gonna first split them up. So I'm just gonna split them between the bowls in front of me here. So remember, I'm only going to make a small portion of each, but what you could do at home is you could double up the recipe. All you need to do is just have the ingredients as they are. All you're going to do is just bulk them up in relation to your recipe. So whatever is mentioned or measured out today is just for the small quantities that I have. But do feel free to just double up the recipe in relation to how much quantity you want to come up with. So here I have now I've got 2 bowls with 3 pieces each. I'm just gonna grab another bowl here. So basically we're gonna play around with, I'm just gonna have 2 there, I'm gonna have 3 here. So it doesn't really matter how much is in each bowl. Remember, we're just going to make small pieces of each so that you're gonna be able to get an idea of how each is done. So on my left here, I have some oil that I have been preheating. It's just been going for about 10 to 15 minutes now. I'm now just going to bring it to the boil, bring the heat a little higher now. So this is going at medium. So I'm just going to separate the potatoes and leave them on my left here, and I'm just going to start with the quickest, easiest one. So basically this one is a very simple one. This is going to be just your regular potato salad. Just gonna grab my bowl there, just gonna get a little organized. So very, very simple. This is an easy way to have a quick potato salad to take with you to work. So this, I'm gonna incorporate some mayonnaise. I'm gonna incorporate some Parmesan cheese, some salt, some black pepper, some chopped chives. I'll grab 1 lemon as well, and then we're just gonna go straight into it. So basically I'm gonna start with the mayonnaise. I'm just gonna put about 1.5 teaspoons in this bowl. And remember, you double up the same quantities, just get the quantities as we go. Remember, with the amount of potatoes you're going to be cooking, you're just going to double the recipe in relation to what the amount of potatoes you're going to be making for yourself at home. So in the bowl I have some mayonnaise. I'm gonna go with also a pinch of salt. Then I'm gonna go with a pinch of black pepper. I'm gonna go with some chopped chives, let's say about 1/2 teaspoon. And then I am just going to grab some fresh coriander here, so small bunch. Remember, this is just to give it a bit of color. Just gonna grab my knife there. So I'm just gonna quickly chop that up. So this is just gonna go straight into the bowl. Remember, basically, if you're going to be able to make a salad that's going to be appealing, you want it to look a little attractive. So this is an easy way to do that. So I'm just going to go with those straight in the bowl. And then I'm going to grab a bit of my cumin powder, just a tiny pinch, just for the aroma and for the taste. And then I'm going to grab my egg. So now I'm going to show you a very simple technique of a way that you can actually peel your egg a little faster than the usual. So I'm just gonna grab, let's see, I'm just gonna go with it. I'm just gonna go with my instinct. I'm just gonna take this out. Right. So very simple technique I use to peel an egg. You can possibly do a lot of things with you can try a lot of different ways to peel an egg, but I'm gonna show you one that's really easy. So all I do is I'm just gonna bounce it on my chopping board like that. I'm gonna drop it in my glass, and I'm just gonna put my hand over it, and I'm just gonna give it a shake. So give that a shake for about 30 to 40 seconds, and then just let that water run out. Easiest way to get the shell out and to try and keep it clean as well. Remember, the idea is to try and save time. You're making a quick lunch, you're probably rushing back to work, or you've got kids around. So this is a very quick way to do it. So just take your spoon, take a regular spoon, and I'm just gonna take my spoon and just insert it on the side there. And I'm just gonna slide it right through the egg. As you can see, very easy technique of peeling an egg. So all I'm doing is just pushing the spoon right between the egg itself and the shell. I'm just gonna go right around like that. Simple, simple, simple technique. And then I'm just gonna go right over the top, and I'm gonna go right through the bottom. So as you can see, very easy technique, very easy to do at home. It keeps it a little cleaner. It saves you so much effort to peel your egg. And as you can see, I have all the shell all held up together, less of a mess, saves you a lot of time. So that's something you need to write down. Right. So we're just gonna go right into it. We're now just gonna squeeze a bit of our lemon juice into the mayonnaise mixture on my bowl here. So just half a lemon. So give that a little squeeze. Use a sieve in case your seeds jump in there. You don't really want to serve a sauce or a salad with seeds in it. So small squeeze, and I'm just gonna save that for later. Get rid of that. So take a spoon, just go right through it. Give it a nice quick mix, like so. So remember, this is an easy way to make a dressing that just coats your potatoes. Remember, those are parboiled, they're already salted. So all you want is just a little coat to make it a little easier to consume, a little easier to digest, and even a little more palatable. So this will be easy to give to kids. It's something that they're gonna enjoy taking to school with them for an easy lunch. And it's actually quick and easy to make. So I'm just gonna continue mixing that mixture together. Remember, in here, for those who missed out, I've got a bit of mayonnaise, a bit of coriander, tiny pinch of salt, tiny pinch of black pepper. Just gonna go right around that. And then for the last bit of your dressing, you're just gonna grab your egg. I'm just gonna go for my grater now. Remember, you want it to look a little more attractive, so I like to use a little bigger size of my grater side. So this, you might not be able to find this particular one, but whichever kind of grater you're using, just remember, try to use the biggest size you have. It makes it look a little more attractive. So I'm just gonna go for it. Just gonna grate that hard-boiled egg in there. And for those who have a little hard time boiling your egg, I'll give you a little tip about getting your egg nicely boiled. Whenever you want to make your hard-boiled egg, remember to time it at 30 minutes or between 25 to 30 minutes. Put a tablespoon of vinegar in your water, pinch of salt, let it come to the boil. Just drop your egg in there gently, give it 30 minutes, take it out, cool it under running cold water, and boom, you get your really perfectly hard-boiled egg. So as you can see, as I just mentioned, the vinegar actually allows you to get that nice perfect yellow on your egg. So you don't actually have your egg turning gray from boiling. You get that nice yellow color coming through. You get the nice white color from the egg white. So yeah, definitely an easy way to make a dressing. So I'm just gonna finish mixing that up. Right. And then I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna drop my potatoes in there. Remember, these were parboiled for about 15 to 20 minutes. They were rinsed under cold running water. And then I'm just gonna mix them in there. Remember, it's a salad you wanna serve cold. You don't want to throw your potatoes in there while they're still warm, because it ruins the texture of your mayonnaise. It actually splits your mayonnaise. So I'm just gonna cool them. After cooling them off, you just leave them for a little bit. If you're in a hurry, I recommend just throw them in the fridge, give it a bit of time to cool off, take them out, and just go ahead and mix. So I'm just gonna give that a nice quick mixture. All right, easy peasy. That took a little longer than I expected, but as I said, this is easy to make to order. Remember, you can parboil your potatoes, let them rest in the fridge, and just mix the dressing to order. Throw your potatoes in there and mix them, and voila, easy. So I'm just gonna grab a plate here, and we're just gonna plate that quickly. So for those who are just joining in, we're basically just going through a few techniques that you can be able to use at home, techniques that you can use to try and make potatoes a little nicer, a little more interesting to have as a snack, as a party starter, as an accompaniment even for your dishes. So this is the first step that we went through, and this is an easy egg and potato salad. There's a bit of coriander in there. We got a pinch of black pepper, a pinch of salt, and just for the last finish, I'm gonna go with apple cider vinegar. Remember, if you don't have apple cider vinegar available, you can go with the regular white vinegar. So I'm just gonna put about half a teaspoon in there. So this is just gonna bring the flavors up. Just gonna give that a nice quick mix. Right, and this can go straight on our plate. So I'm just gonna put that on our plate there. And then I'm just gonna try and just not waste a bit of that egg dressing, that beautiful egg dressing we made and mixed in there. I'm just gonna coat that on top. So remember, this substitutes a lot of salads. It's a salad on its own. You can serve it as an accompaniment. If you're having a barbecue, also a good accompaniment. So I'm just gonna go ahead and scoop all that on top. So techniques to making a good potato salad: remember, don't overboil your potatoes, otherwise it comes out as a mash. Don't undercook them, because then it becomes too hard to swallow and it becomes too hard to chew. So just make sure you use your fork or use a knife, poke it right through just before taking them out of water. Make sure your fork goes right in and slides out. Then you know your potatoes are really good. Remember to actually cool them under cold running water, because this slows them from overcooking. So now for the next step, I'm now just going to jump into it. I'm going to show you a nice, easy process of making potato alo tiki. So I've got my oil nice smoking hot. It's ready to go. I'm just going to go jump into it. Just going to grab a bit of egg there. I'm going to grab my bowl. So this is also a very quick and easy way to make your potatoes. Just going to put about a pinch of salt in there. Going to go with a pinch of garlic. Then I'm gonna use, so this is just regular food color. I used a bit of red and a bit of egg yellow and a bit of orange. So I'm just gonna mix that in there. And then I'm gonna go with half a teaspoon of paprika. Throw that in there. Just gonna give that, and then I'm gonna pour my egg in. Just about a tablespoon of the mixture. Just gonna grab a spoon, give that a nice quick mixture. So as you can see, the mixture just goes red instantly. Very easy way to make the potatoes. I'm just gonna give that a quick mix. Then I'm just gonna grab my potatoes, slide them in there. So all you wanna do is get the beautiful red color around your potatoes. So I'm just gonna toss them like so. So for those who are wondering what I'm making right now, so this is a little beautiful recipe I discovered way back in my young chef days. It's a beautiful way of making potatoes Indian style. So this you'd be able to serve with a curry. You can serve it on its own as a starter. So my oil is a little smoky. I'm just gonna pull it to the side. I'm just gonna let that cool off a little bit. So I'm just gonna mix that together, and as you can see, a nice, beautiful, rich red color there. So as I'd mentioned earlier, always be careful before throwing anything in your oil. I always like to use a bit of flour. If you don't have flour right next to you, I have breadcrumbs next to me, so I'm just gonna grab a pinch. I'm just gonna pour that over the oil. So what you're looking for is a sizzle. So when you hear the sizzle, it means it's a little too hot. If the temperature is just right, you're gonna get the bubbles just bubbling right over the surface. So I'm just gonna show you again. So I'm just gonna put a little bit, and as you can see, there's a little of a sizzle if you can hear it. So that means my oil is a little too hot, so I'm just gonna let that sit and cool off for a little while. I'm just gonna turn that off. So your potatoes are nicely colored. You can let that sit in there. Let that color really sink in, give it a nice bright red color. So this I'm just gonna set aside. We're just gonna throw that in there when our oil is a little cooler. So for the third stage of the potatoes, I'm just gonna show you a nice, easy way to actually crumb them. So I'm just gonna grab my egg mixture here. So remember, for those who are just tuning in, we're just playing around with a little technique of trying to make potatoes a little more interesting to have at home, a better way to actually get your kids to enjoy it. So here I'm just gonna go, so for those who are just joining in, we did the first process, which is right in front of me, and it was just an egg and potato salad. The second one is actually the one seated to the far right end here. You can be able to see it. It's a little bit of a mixture that contains egg, and then there's red food color, salt, pepper, and paprika powder. We're just letting that sit while we let our oil cool off. So for the third one, I'm just gonna go right into it. So this, I'm just going to drop my potatoes right in the egg, like so. And I'm just gonna coat them. Very, very simple. So I'm just gonna give that a nice quick coat. Just gonna put that aside for a little second, and then I'm just gonna grab my breadcrumbs here. So all you need is just a tiny little bit. So I'm just gonna go with about a tablespoon or 2. So that's just plain breadcrumbs. You can buy that at a local supermarket. You can be able to make it at home if you don't have time to buy some. Just take some dry bread, throw it in your food processor, or just use your grater. If you don't have a food processor, it's easier to make the breadcrumbs fresh from home. So to the breadcrumbs I have, I'm just gonna add a pinch of black pepper. It's gonna go with a pinch of salt, and then I'm gonna go with about 1.5 teaspoons of grated Parmesan. I'm just gonna pour that in there. It's gonna give that a nice, good, quick mix. Right, so now if you can be able to if the cameras can swing this way, I'm now just going to put this back on the heat. As I mentioned earlier, checkpoints for those who missed out, checkpoints for checking your oil. You're looking for 2 things. If you're gonna put a bit of flour or anything that's dry, remember not to use anything liquid. So try to use your flour if you have some, or you can use your breadcrumbs if you have some next to you. So remember, if you hear a sizzle and it's a little loud, it means it's too hot. If you do it this way and it's slightly less like we had it before, this is now good to go. So I'm just gonna put that back on the heat. Remember, the idea of heating your oil is to make sure that it's just perfectly ready to go. Remember, you're not trying to overheat the oil, you just want it sitting at the perfect temperature. I always insist, try and be careful when working with hot oil. Please always have a safe distance working with oil. Always try and also have your pan with the handle facing as far away from you so you can try and avoid an accident. So we're just gonna go jump into it. So just gonna get that heat going. Just gonna set this aside. Right, so I'm just gonna jump into it. So we're just gonna go back to the potatoes we had coated earlier. Remember this for those who missed out. This is just egg, salt, black pepper, and food color. So I just mix that for about a minute. I let that sit on the side, and as you can see, beautiful rich colors. So I'm just gonna grab that. And remember to always make sure that you hold your potatoes and hold them to the side. Make sure you get rid of any excess liquid that's on them, because you don't want it splashing when it goes into the oil. So I'm just gonna give that a little pat on the side, and it's easier to just drop it off the side of your pan or off the side of your fryer. So I'm just gonna go for it. Easy peasy, you can hear it, it just sizzles, it just goes right into its cooking stage. Gonna mix a nice second one here. Remember to always try and reduce the liquid that's excess. Let it just run off. Then just slide that in there. Then for the last piece, same thing. I'm just gonna let that run off quickly, and then I'm gonna just dump that in there. So remember, your potatoes have already been par cooked. You don't wanna leave this unattended. You wanna be really close. You just want it to just get a nice, beautiful coat on the top, which you're gonna see in a little bit. So those are nice, they're looking nice and crumbly. As you can be able to see from the cameras there, you can see it holds its nice texture, very beautiful colors. So this you should actually be frying for not more than a minute. Remember, your potatoes are already cooked. You just want the coat to really just get its color, get its crisp, and then they're gonna just come out. So always have a bowl next to you. Use some parchment paper, use some serviettes. If you don't have any of the two, just dump them straight onto a sieve. Let that excess oil run out before you serve. So we're just gonna go for it. So very, very beautiful colors coming through, as you can see. So I'm just gonna take those out. I'm just gonna dump them here. I'm just gonna let that excess oil just run out. So, aloo tikki, for those who missed the name, it's actually of a North Indian origin. If you're trying to get the spelling right or you're trying to Google the recipe, it's alo tiki. Right, for those who missed it in the beginning. So I'm just gonna take these out. I'm just gonna set those aside, just give them a little time to drain. So I'm just gonna let those sit behind here, and then I'm just gonna go for the third bit of the potatoes. So for those who are just joining us, inside the bowl right in front of me, I have some breadcrumbs, some salt, and some Parmesan cheese. And I have a bit of black pepper, just a tiny little bit for flavor. Into that, I'm gonna add a bit of sesame seeds. So about 3/4 teaspoon. And then I'm gonna add my oregano. So about 1/4 teaspoon as well. And then I'm gonna go with some cumin. So about 1/4 teaspoon. Just gonna give that a nice quick mix. Remember, the coat is just to get the flavors in there. It's just to give it a bit of a lift. Just gonna give that a nice quick mix like that. And then I'm just gonna go with the potatoes. So I'm just gonna take them out of the egg wash. So remember, this is a tiny bit of, a small teaspoon of normal cold room temperature water. Whipped that with the egg. Just gonna dump those in there. So just toss that a little bit like I'm doing now. Dump it in there. So I'm just gonna give the bowl a little shake, as you can see. So you just want the breadcrumbs to lightly coat the top of the potato. So just keep working it back and forth. Just get them to play around in that bowl. If you know you're going to make a mess, I always recommend use a bigger bowl. It's easier to toss them inside. So I'm just gonna play around with the potatoes in there. Give it a little shake. Right, and those are good to go in the oil. So I'm also gonna throw this in the oil. So we're just gonna cook them for about a minute, just till we get the nice golden color around them. So always use tongs. Always try to use something that will not allow you to drop it in there, especially when the oil is hot. Remember, you're not trying to burn yourself. You're trying to be as careful as you can be. So I'm just gonna go with one in there. Just gonna give that a little toss. And I'm just gonna go for the second one. All right, so while this cooks, we're gonna go take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we're gonna go to the fourth process of making potatoes. We're gonna look at how many techniques we can use to try and make it look beautiful on a plate. So don't touch that dial, we'll be right back. Welcome back, viewers at home. It is I, your chef, Chef Andy. You are watching BrandPlus TV, and this is the last bit of lunch guide. I'm just going to take you now a little back to what we were doing before we went on our break. I'm just going to introduce some of the dishes in front of you. So for those who missed out on the first bits of the show, I have some potato salad, which we did earlier. So this was just parboiled potatoes, 10 to 15 minutes. And then we just cool them off in cold running water, and then we make the dressing on the side, which includes a bit of mayonnaise, a bit of grated egg, a bit of coriander, a bit of apple cider vinegar, as I said, a bit of salt and pepper, and a bit of cumin. And then right next to it, right in the center there, you have some potatoes that were coated in some egg first of all, and then we covered them in breadcrumbs. Breadcrumb mixture that had a bit of seasoning, a bit of herbs and spices, and then the one extremely next to me, the one in the red coating. So this is basically the same thing we did with all three varieties of potatoes. So these were parboiled, but this particular one we mixed with a bit of egg, we mixed with a bit of red food color and a bit of paprika. We fried them for about 2 to 3 minutes for the two that are right next to me, and then we just got that nice crisp coating. And now for the last bit, I want to show you something a little more different to what you see in front of you. Also another technique of playing with your potatoes. So we're just going to go right into it. So I'm just gonna first grab my bowl as you can see, and I'm gonna grab peeled potato. So this is raw, this is not cooked. So I'm just going to show you what we're gonna do with this. So to that, we're going to be adding a bit of egg. So this is just egg, one whipped egg. I'm gonna add a bit of flour, a bit of salt, a bit of pepper, a bit of garlic, and then we are now going to chop a bit of celery and a bit of coriander in there. So I'm just gonna take you through the beginning process. So we're gonna start by first grating this. So remember, this is peeled and is not cooked. So this is raw and we're gonna cook it right from the beginning. So I'm just gonna put that in a bowl and I'm gonna grate that. So ladies and gentlemen, the size of grating size that I'm using is the same one I used for the egg that we had in the salad. Remember, it's a little bigger, it's a little bigger than the other measurements that you have on your grater. The beauty of this one is it allows you to get a nice bigger texture, a nice bigger size, and a more presentable, a nicer presentable texture of your potatoes. So this particular last one is a particular favorite I like, a very, very simple one that you're going to enjoy watching today. So this is a little more, I would say a little more diverse than the other three that we did earlier. Remember, the other three composed of potatoes that we parboiled. This one in particular, we start with a raw potato that we just grated. So I'm now just going to take you through the process of how this is done. So before we continue, I'm just going to heat my pan. Remember, we want our pan nice and hot before we finish the mixture, because this is just going to go straight into our pan and we're gonna fry it. I'm just gonna get my heat going there. Just gonna let my pan just come to the boil, heat up a little bit. I have some olive oil here. So to the bowl that we grated the potatoes, just a bit of black pepper, about half a teaspoon of salt, some chopped garlic, and then I'm also going to add in there a bit of chopped fresh coriander. So I'm just gonna go for it quickly. Goes into the bowl, nice quick rough chop, and then I'm just gonna grab a bit of my celery. So this is just a celery stems. I'm not going to use the leaves because they're a little more potent, they're a little more pungent in taste. Whereas for the stems, they're a little more lighter, and all I want is a little hint of celery. So I'm just gonna put those on the side there, and I'm just gonna quickly chop those. So remember, you just want a nice rough chop to it. You don't have to really concentrate on the chopping, just a nice rough chop, right? So for those who are just joining in, we're just going to be making something different with potatoes. We're just going to mix some potatoes in here with some salt, pepper, celery, and fresh coriander. To that, I'm going to add a tiny bit of apple cider, and then I'm gonna add half a teaspoon of cumin powder. Then I'm gonna add just one whipped egg, about 3/4 of that. And then I'm gonna add a bit of flour. So I'm gonna add it in little bits because I don't want it to be too thick and I don't want it to be too thin. So just to make sure that it doesn't get too thin, too thick in the beginning process, I'm gonna just mix it in stages. So our pan is nice and hot, it's ready to go. So we're just gonna dig in here. Just gonna give that a nice quick mix. So remember, what we're looking for is a somewhat kind of doughy texture. We don't want it to be too runny because we're gonna fry it. So as you can see, if the best way to be able to tell that this is right, you're just gonna hold your bowl and you can see it just slides right through. So you know it's a little light. We're just gonna add just a bit of flour. Just give that a nice quick mix. Remember, we don't want it too lumpy, we don't want it too dry, we just want it to be able to hold into one particular ball shape. So we're just gonna add another bit of flour. So in there it's been about 3 to 4 tablespoons flour. Just gonna keep giving that a mix. So give that a nice thorough mix. Make sure your ingredients are mixed right through. So this is a little runny still. Just gonna add another bit of flour. Remember, it's only safer to add it in little bits because you don't want to ruin your whole mixture at one go. All right, so this is about ready. Easy peasy. So we're just gonna put our pan back on the heat. I'm just gonna go with a bit of olive oil. Remember, we're gonna fry this on each side for about 4 to 5 minutes until it's golden brown. So I'm just gonna bring my heat a little higher now. It's a nice generous drizzle of olive oil. Then we're just gonna come back to our mixture here. So very simple technique. So you can work this by hand actually. So I'm just going to show you how that is done, or you can alternatively use a spoon. So I'm going to start with the first one. If you're of course looking at keeping your hands a little cleaner and you want to work in a nice cleaner way and you want to keep your hands clean, you don't want to keep rinsing, I'm going to show you one way of getting this onto the pan without using your hands. So I'm just going to use you can use 2 regular spoons, it can be 2 tablespoons, you can use 2 teaspoons, as long as you have got 2 spoons of about the same size. So all you're going to do is take a little bit of the mixture, just a nice scoop that you can be able to get onto your spoon. So about that much for this spoon. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my spoons to mold it into a little ball shape. So I'm just going to keep sliding that. So this process is actually called quenelling. So quenelling basically where you're trying to roll it into a ball without using your hands. So our pan is nice and hot, it's ready to go. So I'm just gonna continue doing that, and as you can see, it's very simple. It takes a while to master, but as I said, if it's a little difficult for you in the beginning, please just use your hands. All right, so that's nicely rolled up, so that goes right onto the pan. I'm just gonna spread it out a little bit. So that's one technique of doing it without using your hands. Now I'm just going to show you how to do it if you don't like using the spoons. So all I do is I just put a bit of flour on my hands, just roll it around like that, give it a nice little dusting. Then I'm just gonna grab the mixture with one hand and I'm gonna use my palm to just give it a nice little shape. Remember, the idea of this is to try and get all the air pockets out. You want it to be nice. You want it to be nice before it goes into the pan. You also want it to hold its shape. So I'm just gonna use my hand and I'm just trying to squeeze it and get that nice ball shape out of it. And then simply onto your pan. It's not, if you think you can be able to flatten that by hand, please do. If you don't feel safe about doing it, please use a spoon. So I like to use the palm of my fingers and I just small light press on top like that. So we're just gonna let those cook for about 4 to 5 minutes on each side till they're golden brown. And while those are cooking, we're just going to make some room here and I'm just going to jump into plating. So I'm just gonna now teach you a few techniques of making that appetizer plate, or making that starter plate look a little nicer for your clients or your kids at home, or your family for that matter. So I'm just gonna clear my surface here quickly. All right. Right, so we're just gonna get in there. So as you can see, starting to just nicely get that nice golden ring around the bottom. So what we're looking for is we want the ring to go right around the edges. As soon as it just starts to dry on the top, we're gonna turn it around. So what you're looking for at this stage is basically, you're looking at a nice, more runny texture that's right in the middle there. And what happens is as you continue cooking, it continues to dry up. So you know that the potato is now cooking right through. So we're just gonna let those cook slowly. Remember, this is going on low heat. You wanna cook it slow. You don't want it to brown too quickly and you don't want to burn it. So I'm just gonna grab my nice, beautiful big plate here and we're just gonna go right into it. Right, I'm just gonna set those aside. So I'm just gonna take you through a few techniques of making a few sauces that can actually accompany this really well. Very simple things you can be able to mix at home, things you can even show to your kids and they can be able to make on their own. Right? So we're just gonna give a check here. We're just gonna have a look and see. Right, so we're just gonna try and give that a lift, and you'll notice that it's a little stiffer. It holds shape while you try and turn it over. So I'm just gonna flip that around and you can see nice, beautiful golden colors coming through there. Remember, we wanna also turn the other one around. You want it to cook evenly through. So as you can see, nice, beautiful colors coming through there. We're just gonna give that about 4 to 5 minutes to cook through on the other side as well. And we're gonna jump right this way. So I'm just gonna show you a few techniques of plating, a few techniques of making dips, a few techniques of just trying to make it look wow for your guests, try to make it look more appetizing. So normally I like to serve this with a side of lemon, so very simple. All you do is take half a lemon, so all you're going to do is just cut it right through the middle there. And then you're gonna now break this into 3 wedges. So I'm just gonna go 1 and 2. Very simple, and I'm just gonna put those on my plate. So very simple techniques. You don't have to take too much effort to plate this. Remember, you're just trying to show that you put a little bit of effort in plating. Very simple. And then I'm gonna show you something here with the cucumber, really cool. So basically what we have here is a peeled cucumber. So this is basically just the skin, as you can see, and this is the inside. I'm gonna show you how to do that in a little bit. So now all I did, so basically to attain the same thing, normally I would just put those right in the center of my plate like that. Just simple garnish, as I said, no fast garnishing techniques. I'm just gonna show you how I came up with that. So all I did was take the bits of the top and the bottom bits of your cucumber. If it's too long, just cut it into about 4 or 5 centimeter length. So all I'm going to do now is I'm gonna take my knife and I'm gonna make a small incision on the side of the cucumber, and I'm just gonna press it on the board, and I'm just gonna go roll it as I go along. So basically all you're doing is rolling it out, letting your knife do your work for you. So as you see, you get the nice core out, you have the skin nicely out, you've got definitely very easy techniques to plate. So all I'm going to do with these pieces is I'm now just going to give that a chop like that. Remember, you're trying to turn your plate into something appetizing. You want to look like you put a bit more effort in it. So I'm just going to take these, just gonna move those onto my plate like that. Remember, this is just easy techniques. You can try other techniques with different vegetables. So feel free to try different options. Don't limit yourself to just the one. So that's one way of doing it. I also sometimes like to just cut it into nice long strips like that. All right. You can just dump those on your plate like that. And then for the toothpicks that we were saving earlier, just gonna show you what we're gonna do with those. So basically, remember, you're turning your plate into a biting kind of setup. So you're just gonna use your toothpicks to just set that up. So I'm just gonna put the toothpicks right through. I'm just gonna move those onto the plate. Remember, it's an easy, no fuss snack. It's something you can make and even serve to your kids as a snack before dinner, a snack between meals, and even something you can give to your guests, just something that you can just entertain them with, okay? So if we move right to this end, we're just gonna give this a turn. We're just gonna check on the bottom side, see how we are doing. So that's cooking through nice and easy. We're just gonna turn that and let it continue browning. We just want to really get all that water, all that excess liquid out. So remember, this has been cooking now for about 4 minutes. We're just turning it up and down, and we're just trying to get to see that. So basically what you're watching for is the little air bubbles that are popping out. The moment you know it's cooked right through, you won't notice the bubbles coming right through. It's just gonna look flat, and then you know it's actually cooked right through. So we'll just give that a bit of some time. All right, so back on the plating, as I said. So for those who are just tuning in, I have some aloe tiki, I have some egg and breadcrumb coated potatoes. Remember, these were all parboiled. Right, I'm just gonna grab my toothpicks the same way we did with the others, and I'm just gonna use those to go on the plate. Simple techniques. Right, I'm just gonna get rid of those now. And then I have my potato salad. This I don't need to put sticks on because it's a little saucy, so I'm just gonna drop it on the plate as it is. Right, so very simple techniques of plating, quick and easy, something that you can be able to do in advance, you can be able to do on a short span of time. So now I'm just going to go through one little technique that I always use. I like to use a bowl on the side as well to just, if you have a show bowl like myself, I always like to try and play with 3 different dippings that you can actually give as a variety to your dish. So this one is nice and simple. I'm just going to go with mustard. So this is regular English mustard. Just gonna go with that. Right, and then I'm just going to squeeze a bit of lemon juice in there. Just gonna give that a little mix. Then I'm gonna add, remember this was a mixture of equal quantity tomato to onion. I'm just gonna add that in there. Right, give that a nice quick mix. Remember, you're serving this as an alternative to a dip. Right, so easy peasy. In goes the first one that we had. Goes right in the bowl like that. Very simple. Okay, so you now have one dip in there. I like to always give also a little bit of vinegar on the side. It always brings a little, it picks up the flavors and gives the vegetables a little flavor. So this I'm just gonna pour in there. So I'm just gonna let that sit like that. Right, so we're just gonna flip this side again. We're just gonna give this one more turn. Remember, you want a golden brown color. You don't want to burn them. You don't want to cook them too fast, otherwise they don't cook through. So as you can see, this is now nicely darkening and the bubbles are starting to disappear, so we know that's almost done. So we're just gonna let that continue cooking for about another minute, and I'm just going to show you how to finish your plating here. I'm just gonna get rid of those. And then I like to also give a suggestion of mayonnaise. Sometimes you like to have a bit of mayonnaise or something, so I'm always gonna leave that one extra open. So this is basically just for your curiosity. You could go with ideas like ketchup, you could go with chili sauce, you could try all sorts of different dips. So if you also have a single bowl, you can play with 3-4 bowls, you can try your options out. If you have a bowl like myself, I always like to just put the 2 and I let the third one, I actually leave the third one to your imagination. So you could go with chili in there, you could go with ketchup, you could go with just plain mayonnaise, you could try something else. So feel free to try and come up. Actually, I'm gonna leave it to you, I'm gonna leave it to you viewers at home. I'm gonna let you think of something that you could actually put in that last bit of the bowl. So I'll let you come up with that now, and we're just gonna come to this side and we're gonna take this off the heat. And as I said earlier, if you look at them closely, you realize that the bubbles that were popping up earlier are just going to disappear completely. Then you know you're good to go. You know those are cooked. I'm just gonna turn that off. So remember, this has been cooking now for about 5 minutes on each side. Remember, the potatoes are not parboiled, so you really need to make sure this cooks through, otherwise it will give you a bit of indigestion. You need to be very careful when you cook this. Remember, it's an easy way to make them. All you need to pay attention to is always keep flipping them around. Make sure before you take them off the pan, you can see extremely 0 bubbles popping out from the top of the potatoes. So I'm just gonna take those out of the heat. All right, I'm just gonna lay those on a plate there. All right, so viewers at home, for those who missed out on the beginning stages of the show, for those who are just tuning in now, this is just a technique we were playing with today. So we were just playing around with a different way around potatoes. So we started off with a potato salad, so that had a bit of mayonnaise, a bit of hard-boiled egg, a bit of coriander, a bit of salt and pepper for seasoning. We mixed that with mayonnaise and we just mixed it together and served it. So you can keep that in the fridge, feel free to chill it out a little bit. And then we also had some potatoes that we had actually dipped in some egg wash and then coated with some breadcrumbs with some seasoning, some herbs and spices. And then we have the alo tiki, the ones in red, so that actually had a bit of egg, which we added a bit of food color, which was red color and orange color together. And then we just added a tiny bit of paprika just to bring the flavors out. And last but not least, we have the ones right in front of you, the nice big golden ones. So basically all I did was grate some potato. I added a bit of celery stalk in there. I added a bit of chopped coriander, a bit of salt and pepper, and a bit of apple cider vinegar. So ladies and gentlemen, it has been my pleasure to be your host today. It has been a pleasure to make this incredible, beautiful looking plate for you guys. I recommend and I ask that you follow our page. I ask that you leave your comments. Feel free to check out our page, BrandPlus TV. Follow our Facebook page, recommend it to a friend. See you next week when we come into another session whereby we'll be bringing you fast, easy to make affordable meals that you can be able to make from home. It has been my pleasure being with you today, and from here in the studios and from myself, goodbye.